Mad Men, a brilliant show, but no one ever talks about how it encompasses the path of the modern creative. While advertising isn't considered a traditional artistic medium, in the time of the 60s, I believe it was a kind of art. It wasn't just about selling people things, but ideas and ways of being and acting. And so, it encompassed the changing culture of the time. Ultimately, creative work isn't just about putting pen or paintbrush to paper. It is about intent. I know people often wonder what makes something art. And that is what I was taught. It's why Jackson Pollock's splatter paintings were considered art. There was intention, expression, some idea that wished to breathe, expressed through a person. It's why AI can never truly be an artist, just a mimic. In Mad Men, we see how intention can make even advertising into art. Mad Men also encompasses the second aspect of creative work, process. It's more than just throwing things together. It's revising, editing, changing, and shifting. When we make art, we are one with the universe, because it is also doing those same things on a grander scale. Ordinary people like Dawn, Peggy, Ken, Megan, and so many others go through the creative process to express specific ideas around products and build our world. Today, we're going to look more specifically at the ups and downs of the creative process through Mad Men. If you haven't seen my first Mad Men video, you should go watch that first and then come back to this one, just so you understand better what I'm talking about. Advertising changed our world with its desire to build something. The ads of the past created desire, exploiting many of our base needs and growing them. However, business used to be a different animal. In the initial rundown that the copywriter Paul Kinsey gives Peggy, we see that businesses are just coming to the agency to buy space in media. Paul describes creative as window dressing, but as the show goes on, we see how Dawn and other creatives fight for their end of the business, because humans have an innate desire to make things and to consume things that were made with value, substance, and creativity. We don't buy goods, we buy ideas. It is important that we feel that we are buying our aspirations, our values, and that the goods we buy are in line with them. When business fails to understand this, it will cease to function on a larger scale. Throughout Mad Men, there is this tension between the business and creative end of things. The tension eases when business recognizes its role as a facilitator, but not before there is conflict. The common ground is that both business and creative want to build things, but only creative can. People like Dawn, those with vision, want to build something. As he says to Bert after the agency is sold for the second time, he wants to build something, not deal with accountants trying to make $1 into $1.10. Dawn has a vision of the world. Not necessarily a utopia, but one that is substantive. In the 1960s, there was a new world on the horizon, and he wanted to be a part of it. He makes it clear throughout the series that if you're not selling something substantive, why bother selling at all? The tension between business and creative really comes to a head at the end of season 2, when Sterling Cooper is about to be sold to PPL. The sale is headed by the mediocre account man Duck Phillips, because he wants to be a partner and in charge of creative. When Roger tells him this isn't possible, he arranges the sale to PPL. Duck's vision of the company is about laser precision, buying time and space for ads as efficiently as possible. Dawn is away while the deal is being set up. But once he arrives and hears the details of the sale, he makes it clear he doesn't want to be involved. And this is a criticism of modern business practices as well, because putting the bottom line above everything else has created the empty world we live in. Back then, it seemed like there was still room to push back against such a mindset, and Dawn certainly did. Capitalism was always a means to an end, not the end itself. Dawn makes it clear that he sells products, not advertising. This is the difference between modern capitalism and capitalism of the past. It wasn't just about making money. It was about bringing new things into the world. The money was a byproduct of a successful idea. If I haven't made it clear, think about buying a fridge. In the 1960s, there were beautiful pieces with innovative features designed to make our lives easier. In modern times, every item looks the same, and the only innovation is the addition of AI, which is being tacked onto everything as some kind of catch-all feature. It's about adding more non-critical parts that can malfunction, so you must buy another one. It's not creative or product-minded, it's lazy, and sales depend on the monopoly companies have on the market. These items guarantee sales because they are designed to break. This is Duck's vision of capitalism and modern business. This approach is one devoid of creativity and artistic process. It is the approach that we are living through right now, which is why it's important that business know its place in the greater scheme of things. It has value, but up to a point. Our ability to make things as humans is, in my opinion, the most important thing. The creative process, making something from nothing, is hard to quantify. I wrote another video about Mad Men a few months ago, but looking back at it, I realized I didn't really explain what the creative process was, because if you know, you know, but that's not always the case. So to explain it better, I think it's best we look at Peggy's Heinz Beans presentation. At Sterling Cooper, it seems like there is a discussion of ideas and then a period of refinement until the creative director agrees on the strongest direction to present to the client. In some cases, Don, or later Ted, as creative directors, will simply come up with the idea by themselves. In the case of Heinz Beans, the client is impossible to please because he's not really sure what he wants. Peggy goes through several ideas, from the bean ballet to the kids by the campfire, until Megan finally nails it with the Beans Over Generations ad. It's the process of creation and rejection, the back and forth, that really makes any artistic endeavor. In art classes, you receive a prompt, you create, and then everyone critiques the work in a class setting. It can be brutal and often unhelpful because without outside criticism, artists are always going back and forth between versions of work anyway. I talked before about the artist's way as a kind of north star for creatives, but some things you have to go through to fully understand, like the pain of self-doubt in the creative process. Creative work isn't an easy path. Perhaps this is a bit of a tangent, but stay with me because it will make sense. Recently, this song, Astrovan, by Mountjoy came on the radio, and it's an interesting ode to creative struggles. If you are struggling through the artistic process, the ups and downs, the stress, it might help you to hear it. The band is singing about the worries and fears of being poor during an artistic journey. They wrote this on a lyrics website. While writing Astrovan, I was thinking about the struggle that so many artists face in the pursuit of their passion. I really wanted to juxtapose the purity of things like angels and Jesus with that struggle. It's a song that's meant, hopefully, to inspire anyone who is struggling in their pursuit to keep going. I found it to be a really meaningful song, because I think it's also about knowing that the universe loves you even if you're not famous or successful on Earth. Maybe you're famous in heaven. How do you know how your work affects someone's life? I know this artist has no clue that I'm referencing their song, or that it helped me through a rough patch, but they made it anyways, and put it out there for those who need it. I look at the comments on this song, and I know we're all just going through the same thing all alone together, as the song says. Creative work is hard. It's not about being famous. If that's all you're thinking about, then you're doing it wrong. It can be painful and stressful, not always because of the process or the self-doubt of it, but because the world will work against you. In modern times, especially, there is this visceral hatred of independent thinking, of creative vision, of emotionality. It's tough, but you have to remain who you are, because at the end of the day, the world will change again to something else. If you can't look in the mirror and know who you are, if you lose that beautiful artistic part of yourself, you'll regret it forever. Nowadays, there is a desire to root out that which is human, but even $1 trillion can't fill the hole inside you. Nothing can, the way creating something can. I promise you that. As tough as it is so rewarding when done right. For some people, it's their whole life, or it should be. And for others, it should just be a hobby. If you're not sure who you are, then maybe the following example can help. I think of Ken and Megan, two characters in Mad Men who were destroyed as artists for different reasons. Ken's story is about a man who should have just been a writer. In season 1, we see that he gets published, and the whole office is jealous, to the point where Roger mocks others in the office for not being published yet. Through his writing, he even meets his future wife, who rejects one of his manuscripts. manuscripts. But by season 6, in the new firm, Roger is a bitter old man, chastising Ken for continuing his writing. We get a glimpse of his work at the end of Signal 30, seeing how he pulled inspiration from Pete's life, his town, his home, and his sadness. This is creativity at its best, because even though Ken is ticked off at Pete for telling Roger about his secret writing career and getting him yelled at in the office, he doesn't get mad. Instead, he uses it to fuel a story. Frankly, he should have quit right then and there, transitioning into writing full-time. But stability kills joy, and he stays too long at the firm, becoming the account man for Chevy and getting shot in the eye by those lunatics. By the end of season 7, Ken is a bitter and beaten man, looking to torture the original team from Sterling Cooper as they get bought up by a new firm. That creative soul is beaten down by the horrors of the business world. On the other hand, we have Megan, Dawn's second wife. She finds success in advertising, pitching a fantastic idea to Heinz Beans just before the client is about to pull the plug. She's proud of herself, but uncertain of her success because of imposter syndrome. She's brand new, and she pulled a whole account back from the brink, which led to some uncertainty. Her father, her mother, the whole of the patriarchal system makes her feel awful for being successful, because women aren't really seen as people in the 1960s. She always felt guilty for not pursuing her acting desires completely, and despite her success at the ad agency, she drops it all to go back to acting. Her motives aren't pure. To be fair, she wasn't totally happy with advertising. It's not the nicest place to work, but she allows her discomfort to destroy what could have been an interesting career start. It seems like she's pursuing acting to make her father happy, to prove that she can survive through the struggles of creative life, of working hard to fulfill her dreams, so that he will be proud of her. He's a communist, and it seems he only values struggle. But she's also in her 20s, and if she was really uncertain of both paths, she could have just done something else. She never listened to her own voice, the same way Ken didn't. At this time in the world, gender roles were very pronounced. Men were expected to be breadwinners and make a lot of money, and women who were in the working world were new to the space and still treated like props, objects for the world to exploit for the common good. The patriarchy played a role in both of their decisions to pursue and not pursue art. Outside of that fact, the simple truth is this: you will feel in your soul if you should be making art or not. For any life to be well lived, we must examine our actions and motivations, especially in major life decisions. It helps to take time and cut out all distractions, mass media, social media, family, friends, even books and music, and really take the time to just listen to the voice within. Does it cry out to make art? To perform, to create, to inspire? Because anything short of that passion, that intensity, will make artistic work an impossible endeavor. It's already hard enough to begin with. If you get into it for the wrong reasons, it will ruin your life. Life is not a simple series of platitudes like, pursue your dreams no matter what, or artistic work will ruin your ability to make money. It's complicated and personal, and only you can make the right decisions for yourself. If you do find artistic work to be right for you, then it can be an amazing, if bumpy, journey. Advertising back then was, in my opinion, a creative endeavor. It's part of the reason why things were so different between the first and second parts of the 20th century. Personal care trends, like makeup, would have been set in the first part of the century by monarchs and wealthy people like queens, but by the end of the century, they were set by business, specifically advertising. It shapes our world even today. In the Gold Violin episode, Martinson's Coffee comes in to hear a pitch. They want a youth perspective because young people aren't drinking coffee. They prefer Coca-Cola. The young copywriter Smitty explains to Dawn what the youth perspective is through a letter he received from a friend of his. It's a long letter, but in short, they want to discover the world for themselves, not to be told what it is. They are seeking experiences of all types. This was the age of the individual, so to sell coffee, they had to do so by treating it like an enticing, interesting new experience for a single person to discover. They made a song about drinking delicious coffee in an exotic locale. Now, whether this was the approach coffee sellers took at the time to hook young people, I don't know, but recently I was at a diner filled with older folks. The clientele was all people over 60, drinking coffee at lunch. It's interesting to think that a product would have to capture the values of a generation to remain or become relevant. I think good creative work is fed by quality culture, and in the case of advertising quality products like well-made coffee, it seemed like a circle. Through creativity, quality products were designed, and through creativity they were promoted, and more grounded arts like theater and painting helped to make more and more creativity in the world. There was a room for all types of artistic endeavors to make their mark. Trends were less about selling things and more about capturing a moment. I know, I'm romanticizing the past again. Advertising did sell the horror of fake butter and fake whipped cream, but I barely remember a time when the world wasn't just about selling everything, making money, and being on top. To be able to value things other than money, you must have a lot of it these days. For creative work to be substantial like it was in the past, the world must be substantial. It must have meaning and feeling, and I'm not sure that exists today. Regardless, the substantive nature of advertising during this time was fascinating. Dawn's interest in doing good creative work is all about that. Good creative work isn't just about boosting sales, it's about doing something different, to make a splash and maybe make someone see things differently, to make people see the world in their lives in another way, to encourage them to deal with their internal conflicts through stories and ideas they haven't seen before. This was a time when media was new and people were still repressed in their attitudes and behaviors. Advertising, at its best, was about telling people how a product would solve real problems. Good creative work was possible because life still had meaning. I think of what Dawn says about love in season 6. Using the concept of love to sell oven cleaner is stupid. It cheapens the word, and in modern times we have done just that. I remember I heard the song True by Spandau Ballet for the first time in some ad for a mop or Mr. Clean. I can't even remember exactly what it was. It felt ridiculous and I came to hate the song. Then I heard it again years later in a car with some friends. They were older and they would have discovered the song when it came out, which removed the negative commercial connotation for me. Having a memory of a song that wasn't about falling in love with a mop, but being with friends, changed the song for me. When it first came out, it was a song about love and connection, not a cleaning product. What's the difference between a husband knocking on a door and a sailor getting off a ship? About 10,000 volts, as Dawn says. For an artist to make something, there must be meaning behind it, but we don't trade in the substantive anymore. The shallower something is, the more successful it usually is. It's heartbreaking, and the reason why most art doesn't make us feel deeply anymore. Another even better example of this is the Mohawk ad from season 2. Dawn highlights the little girl in the back of the ad, marketing to businessmen. He's trying to make them connect with the ad. Peggy isn't certain it will work, because it's sentimental, and men who care about short skirts won't care about that. She thinks that sex sells, and Dawn promptly explains that kind of an approach is crass. It makes creatives in advertising moot, and he's right. Solid advertising, good business. Most things in the world are about people feeling something. Our world doesn't think that way, which is why we have so much garbage happening in the culture now. The only feeling anyone is trying to elicit is a base emotion, like fear or anger. We found a way to make the lowest common denominator, the base instincts that every human has, anger, fear, greed, lust, brute strength, into the most important things. Ads, writing, everything nowadays just wants to hit those buttons in our brains because it is the easiest way to sell us things. Back then, people like Dawn's insistence on making the ad into something meaningful was important, though I also don't think people tolerated garbage. There was a feeling that we should try to be more, which fed the tension between business and creative. The desire to just make something basic that would sell the product easily, and the desire to go above and beyond, to be creative while selling a product. With the rise of this absurd, unregulated crony capitalism, that tension is gone now, which is unfortunate because those creative impulses helped to shift and change our world, move it in a direction rather than keeping it stagnated. One of the big changes of the 60s was civil rights, and characters like Paul Kinsey would claim that the market is a great equalizing force because everyone is a consumer. It puts the identity politics of our times, the segmentation of people into smaller groups, in a different context if we see that perhaps capitalism was actually behind this segmentation. education, and not political quote-unquote wokeness as we've been told. But I'm not sure how much the market contributed to the growth of civil rights. I will say, though, that it was probably a part of at least asking the important questions on the subject. Early in season 1, Dawn and the team are working on a campaign for men's spray-on deodorant. It's obviously an ad about men's hygiene, but Dawn points out very astutely that more than likely women will be buying it. So while the team feels that an astronaut in the ad invokes the future and a sense of wonder at the new, innovative, and shiny, Dawn doesn't see that, because the future does scare some people who are worried about the Cold War. Rather than letting the ad be something trendy, shiny, and unsubstantive, he asks, what do women want? A substantive question, not just about deodorant, but about the role of women in the world and the nature of male-female relationships. From what I can understand of couples in that time, neither really understood what the other wanted or needed. Relationships seemed to be cordoned off by strict gender roles. The episode went on to examine how women were treated both in their relationships and in the world at large. The 1960s, for all its issues around civil rights, sought to ask questions about minorities that would eventually lead to the cultural changes we are living in now. This was both a psychological and social issue that humans have made headway on. Male-female relationships have improved significantly over the decades, with divorce rates dropping significantly. People take it for granted now, but improving relations between men and women came from asking substantive questions in every aspect of our worlds, from media and advertising to politics and civil rights movements. There is a reason why we're not still stuck in the kind of relationships people had back then. Don's answer to this question comes to him while he's with the other woman in his life. As an artist and a working woman, Midge is a different figure in his world. Honest, unpredictable, and independent. Midge tells him he stinks, and he tells her it's because he's a man. When he asks her what do women want, Midge responds not to be asked that question because it implies that men don't know, and that hurts. Thinking on it for a moment, he says, what do women want? Any excuse to get closer. A problematic answer because it still focuses women's worlds upon men, but an answer that ended up running deodorant and body spray ads for men for years to come. It has led to men dousing themselves in body spray in hopes of attracting women. A cultural trait among young men that I still remember from my time in school. A benefit of engaging in the creative process is coming up with or refining ideas. Every piece of art, from advertising to pottery, is an idea. A simple feeling of connecting something that hadn't been connected before and building it out slowly. Connecting canned beans with the future and the past, making them into something substantial, removing the patina of the past, which associated canned beans with the Depression, and jokes about passing gas. It started with various brainstorms, meetings, and rejected campaigns, until Megan finally had a light bulb moment. She was serving Dawn's daughter Sally pasta, the same way her mother served it to her as a kid, and she realized that was the answer. The way in which parents serve food to their children has never changed, and linking beans to that idea changes them completely. It makes beans seem stable and familiar, but in a way that is still future-minded. Ideas can change the world. We seem to forget that fact. People are so busy running around, they miss the thoughtful nature of creative work. It's not about the social media voyeurism, creating a video of a painting or some other artistic work just for the views, but rather thinking about how that painting or artistic work is doing something different. The value of creative work is that it can elicit real change in the world and in our lives. Ideas dictate how we perceive the world. I know that right-wing people love to talk about what is innate or instinctual, but truly little is in modern times. The letter that Dawn writes after Lucky Strike leaves Sterling Cooper is a fascinating example of this. It's a selfish move, but it changes the conversation. The idea of the agency as an object of pity shifts completely. Suddenly, they are the aggressors, seeking new clients and giving the finger to the tobacco industry. A better example of this is Dawn's would-be campaign for Madison Square Garden. The client is convinced that the bad press they are receiving around demolishing Penn Station will ruin the the new project. Dawn explains that their concern over public opinion shows a guilty conscience. No one can stop the project, which means they need to figure out how to shape public opinion. At that time, it was being shaped by those who were against the project. Or, in other words, if you don't like what is being said, change the conversation. Dawn talks about how everything in California is new, and the people are filled with hope. The client should look at their project as bringing fresh life and new energy to a stagnant, decaying city. Because, as he so eloquently puts it, change is neither good nor bad, it simply is. Dawn never makes this campaign, but it's an interesting thing that we never do anymore. We never seek to put fresh ideas out into the world, to take the pulse of the masses and change the way that they perceive things. There is profit in a stagnant world. I wish my Yellowstone video would see more traffic, because it could change the game. No one has any interest in understanding why the right-wing movement in America is the way it is. Whether they are for it or against it, they simply accept it the way it is. Most of our problems in the world are problems of thought, not physical, tangible things. If we changed the way we thought about our problems, we would move the needle forward. But of course, that means that the people who are in power wouldn't be in power anymore. If you like this concept, and are interested in coming up with new, fresh ideas, or at least being able to do something new with what's already there, I'd recommend the morning pages technique from The Artist's Way. I talked about it before in my other Mad Men video, but two of the techniques Julia Cameron recommends in The Artist's Way are great for this. The media diet, that is cutting out all media from our lives for a while, and morning pages, the practice of journaling first thing in the day. Morning pages may sound like a weird technique, but really it's anything from getting new ideas that may come up first thing in the day when the mind is clear after waking, to just cleaning out one's brain of distractions or stressors so you can receive new inspiration more easily. Ideas have the capacity to change the world, but that means opening ourselves up to them, and not just as tools of productivity, because it can often take a while for an idea to become fully formed. Whether it was men's body spray or cigarettes, Dawn thinks about the problem for days, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, he finds the answer. They say inspiration can find you out of nowhere, but it must find you working. Working means, as Dawn says, thinking deeply about a problem and then forgetting about it entirely. The one thing about creative work is that it is 90% managing your emotions. Everything is about keeping the world from stealing your peace and calm that gives you creative energy. The faster you can get back to a stable, relatively good feeling place, the easier creative work will be. The same way that capitalists view all things as opportunities to make money, true artists and creatives view all of life as a source of great art. Some of the best creative examples in this show, from Ken's stories to Dawn's campaigns, come from random, sometimes crappy things. You must take in the world as it is and put it back out as art. There is an adage that claims that great suffering brings great art, but all emotions, if felt deeply, can do that. Truly, suffering is the one emotion everyone feels because they don't know how to turn it off. It's the most intense emotion we all go through, but it doesn't have to be. If you let yourself feel it, everything from tasting a great piece of fruit to laughing at a joke can be an intense experience. Love can be intense too, and not just getting hurt from being dumped. It could be the simple joy of enjoying a fleeting moment in time with someone. It's not about feelings for any sort of end purpose, but simply for the sake of feeling them because we can. It is not a curse or a detriment, it's magic. The chills of fear, the tingles of love, the twinge of nostalgia, all of these feelings are meant to connect us more deeply to the universe around us. It's demoralizing that society treats them as things to be medicated away, forgotten, so we can be robots for the working world. But the world cannot use against us that which we accept. And this is true of all of our feelings as well. We can choose to accept our worst feelings and let them go, like waves on the ocean. You might be watching this video because you're interested in creative work. It's why I'm making it. But truly, every person is a creator, and the ideas given here can be of use to anyone. It's a bit of a contrasting idea that to make great art, we need to feel all of our feelings, which are messy, and get a grip on them in order to make something. It's tricky, and I hope that makes sense, but really it just means that artistic work is work that requires emotional labor. And truly that is the hardest part of all creative work. We were born creators. from the time of the cavemen. I think of this painting often. In the world of archaeology, this was fascinating. As I learned about it, the caves of Lascaux were about a kind of sympathetic magic, people trying to influence the world around them to make certain things happen. It's some of our earliest art as a species, and it's interesting that Harry Crane mentions it at the end of season 1. He did a whole series of pictures in college that were handprints on glass, fogged up from the heat. To him, it was like someone reaching through the stone, through time, to say, I was here. I never thought about it like that. That our creativity, our creations, whether they are impressionist paintings or handprints on a cave wall, reach through time and space. From this, as well as his own issues with his wife, Don comes up with a campaign for the wheel, a slide projector that also stores photos. It's not just a way to view old photos, it's a time machine, taking us back to the happier moments in our lives. Creativity has no ending. It's a part of the endless process of human life. Everything in our world is about that process. At least it should be. Early in the series, Dr. Faye puts it brilliantly, because it's not about buying things. It's about understanding ourselves. Everything we do should be about that. From making art to raising kids to buying things. It's a perversion of reality when we drop that substance from our lives. How do we navigate our deepest conflicts as an individual, as a society, of what we want versus what's expected of us? It's a theme through the series that capitalism should be a means to an end. As Bert Cooper, the founder of Sterling Cooper, sings at the end of the series, the best things in life are free. You might feel some joy from buying something, but the process of making it and what you do with it is what really matters. We are all in process as individuals and as a society. I believe it is the fundamental nature of reality. Nothing is ever clear and complete. Nothing is ever truly finished. Even death is just a change, a shift from one form to another. Creativity helps us tap into that process, to become more in tune with it. In choosing not to engage with that process as a society, to stagnate by making safe choices constantly, we lose our growth as a species. Without creativity, without process, life has no meaning. Without meaning, we're no different than the deer who graze every day of their lives. There is nothing innate that we are here to do, no matter what religion or society tells us. The best way to find it, in my opinion, is to dig deep and make something. You'd be amazed how much the creative process can illuminate things. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!